My name is Jessica Wetzel, and I'm the e-commerce manager here at Schoolhouse. And I wanted to start off by thanking you for joining us today and participating in our webinar with Richard Turendi, and he's the CEO and co-founder of VisionQuest 2020. The topic for today is how we can use a video game to identify children's vision disorders. In my conversations with Richard over the past couple months, I have witnessed firsthand his passion for this product, its capabilities, and his passion to really identify children's vision disorders and find a way to improve the accuracy and the rate that we are able to identify those. So I'm very excited to have him demonstrate the software for you today. Before I turn the time over to Richard, I would like to review a few quick things about today's webinar. The first thing would be that we will not be taking audio questions, but would like you to submit your questions via the questions interface in GoToWebinar. Richard is planning to take up to 45 minutes for his presentation, after which we will take the questions as they arrive. This webinar will be recorded, and a link to it will be posted on schoolhealth.com after the webinar. And then we will also be emailing everybody who registered the recording, as well as some other resources for you for future playback. And then at the end of the webinar, we will be selecting one lucky attendee to win $500 off a purchase of the EyeSpy 2020 software. So make sure you stay until the end. And without further ado, I'm going to turn the time over to Richard. So, Richard?
Thank you, Jessica. And I, too, would like to thank everyone for attending. As most of you that have registered know, there's quite a long list of things that we intend to talk about, and I'm going to try and go through them very quickly, and so that we have plenty of time for questions. So before I do that, though, I want to talk a little bit about VisionQuest 2020 and why I co-founded it 10 years ago. VisionQuest 2020 is the nation's only nonprofit organization that has a very specific mission in protecting children from undetected vision disorders. And the reason why is because out of this group of children that you see on the screen, up to 2 of those children have a vision problem. And the real problem here is that the child themselves may be completely unaware. Their frame of reference may be that their world has always been blurry, so that they have got no way of articulating that they have a vision problem. It's really not their responsibility to tell us that they can't see. It's our responsibility to find out whether or not they can. The public health dilemma, if you will, is that some vision disorders can lead to irreversible blindness in one eye due to a condition called amblyopia. And I know that I'm speaking to the experts out there. You guys already know this. But the real issue is that, it's much more common than people realize. In fact, in this country alone, every 6 minutes, a child and their family is informed that the child is now blind in one eye. And what breaks the hearts of these parents is that the blindness could have been prevented if only the vision disorder had been found earlier in life, before age 9. Now, traditional vision screenings have not changed since 1862, when the wall chart was originally invented. And it's got a number of issues that we'll talk about, but as you all know, it relies very heavily on human interpretation, in particular because the child has the ability of memorizing the wall chart. In fact, I'm sure most of you have actually witnessed that yourself. And of course, they can also peek through their fingers if you're having them cover their own eyes. I'm sure we're all in agreement. Look, vision is critically important for everyone, especially children. It dramatically affects their school performance, but even their psychosocial development, and ultimately their earning potential. So it has an economic impact as well. So let's start off by talking about the difference between the 2 different ways that we can evaluate a child's vision. The first that I'll talk about is objective. These are commonly referred to as instrument-based screenings. Some of you may recognize the Welsh Allen Suresight or the PediaVision Spot. The device on the right is the Plus Optics S12. They're all very similar auto-refractive devices. The spot in the middle and the S12 on the right are binocular auto-refractors. But it's important to understand that what these devices do is they are essentially cameras that measure the child's eyes and then evaluate for risk factors. Now, if you compare that to a subjective technique actually interacts with the child. Whether you're using a wall chart or whether it's an optometrist or ophthalmologist performing a full examination, there's an interaction with the child, and what you're doing is you're determining the child's ability to see. It's very different. So objective techniques have advantages, though, because they're very easy to use. They don't require certification, to operate or administer vision screening, and they're very fast. Subjective techniques, you guys really have to be extensively trained. Like I had already mentioned, there's a lot of interpretation involved, and they do take time to administer. But objective techniques do not look beyond the child's eyes, so just keep that in mind, that it's essentially taking a picture. Subjective techniques, when properly performed, they evaluate the entire visual system of the child. So not just their eyes, but the optic nerve, the vision center of the brain, and even cognitive processing of the visual information. So understanding the differences between those two techniques, I want to talk about what the American Academy of Pediatrics and the American Academy of Pediatric Ophthalmology and Strabismus recommend. Obviously, I'll be using the acronyms going forward. So their recommendations are actually very easy to understand. That instrument-based screenings, like photo screening, are elective on children from 6 to 18 months of age. 36 months of age. So between 6 months and 3 years of age, you can use instrument-based screenings. Now, you can use instrument-based screenings as an alternative to a visual acuity screening, which is a subjective screening, in children between the ages of 3 and 5. But very clearly, once a child is age 5 or above, they recommend, both organizations recommend using subjective vision screening techniques. The question is why? Well, again, I'm big into analogies, I guess, but it's like if you really want to get to know someone, can you do that by simply looking at a photo of them? Not really, right? If you want to really understand somebody, you have to have a conversation or interact with them, and that is what a subjective screening is. They are a conversation with the child, and that is why the AAP and AAPOS recommend subjective screenings for children that are old enough to have a conversation. In quotes, of course. So subjective screenings are recommended, but like we were talking about, there's several limitations, and they're significant. For example, one can say, well, a subjective vision screening includes a full eye exam, and that's absolutely true, but the financial and logistical barriers of getting every child to an eye doctor every year is, it's not programmatic at all, and in fact, there are simply not enough eye care professionals for every child to be seen every year. And it is important because children's vision is dynamic. It can change. So if a child has good vision when they're in first grade, it doesn't mean that they have good vision when they're in fourth grade. Children need to have their vision screened every year. Like we already talked about, wall chart screenings are static. And so there's all types of problems with memorizations and and again, if you're not having the child occlude their eye with a temporary patch, then peeking is possible. And I'm sure you've all witnessed that. The vision screening itself can intimidate children. And again, I'm sure that's something that you've all witnessed. Volunteer engagement is challenging because, again, in order to, provide you with an accurate and reliable result, the volunteers that you engage or the personnel that you engage really do have to be very well trained, very experienced, and even if they're perfect vision screeners, they're human beings, right? So we're all subjected to, fatigues and distractions and life in general. And in fact, the application of very specific protocols or set of rules is critically important. It has to be done consistently. And these rules, I mean, I'm sure you're all familiar. For example, this is the amblyopia treatment study protocol. I mean, this is a very complicated protocol that needs to be committed to memory. And then, of course, if you do that, say, just for visual acuity, it looks something like this. And then when you include, the evaluation of depth perception, it adds in a little bit more complexity. And then if you want to take into consideration that we should be doing stratified evaluations depending on the age of the child, what optotypes you use, what size, the protocol, as you can see, becomes very complicated. So I want to talk about how we can get the best of both worlds. How can we enjoy all of the advantages of objective screening techniques but get subjective vision screening results, and in so doing protect the children's vision and ultimately benefit the school, because we know that our students can see. So we were fortunate enough that Brian Williams became aware of the issues that are addressed, again, the memorization, peaking, intimidation, all the things that you see there by EyeSpy 2020. And he actually interviewed us to talk about what the EyeSpy 2020 system does. And I believe that newscast is available on the school health website, and I know that it is on the VisionQuest website. So you can watch that at your leisure if you're interested. But in addition to Brian Williams, the Medical University of South Carolina has one of the top ophthalmic clinics in the world. It's called the Storm Eye Institute. They conducted an independent scientific validation study that was published in the Journal of AAPOS. And that their conclusion was that when you take EyeSpy and you install it on a standard laptop computer, Windows computer, that this software actually mimics the results of a certified ophthalmic technician using a vision testing piece of equipment, gold standard. So this is extraordinarily unique. There's truly nothing like this. And what does it look like? How easy is it to operate? Well, this is a section of the data entry screen, and this is the extent of the knowledge that is necessary. You basically just need to type in some information about the child, and that's it. Now, typing this information could take a couple of minutes, so I'm going to talk about how long it takes to vision screen children using the system, but that's the extent of what you need to do in order to provide the child with a very precise vision screening, accurate. I just do want to point out the special needs option here. Many, many thousands of special needs children have been successfully vision screened using EyeSpy, and that's something that I'm particularly proud of. As you're about to see, because it's a video game, it engages children in ways that other techniques simply do not. And so EyeSpy works very, very well with special needs children running in its standard mode. Having said that, if you have a severely disabled child that cannot articulate a mouse, you can click on the special needs option, and what you essentially do is interact with the child by having them point to a piece of paper based on what they're seeing on the screen, and then you're playing the game, for lack of a better term. You're operating the mouse on behalf of the child. But that special needs mode is rarely needed. And we're going to talk about alternative vision screenings to EyeSpy as well, depending on what your needs are, in just a few minutes. But anyway, you type in this information, and one thing I want to point out, a couple things I want to point out. One, if you don't want to type every child's name into EyeSpy prior to doing a vision screening, you can also select the child from a preloaded student roster, so you can save time that way, and also eliminate data entry errors. But once you get this information, whether you're selecting the child from a preloaded list or you're typing it in manually, EyeSpy immediately creates a customized vision screening for that particular child. And more importantly, during the screening process, the game itself is adjusted in real time so that we can provide accurate results as quickly as possible. So again, that's where it's mimicking what a certified ophthalmic technician would be doing. This is an example of a screen that would appear to the person, volunteer, whomever is administering the vision screening. And these messages pop up only as needed. So whenever there's intervention or interaction required, participation, if you will, on the part of the proctor. In this case, it's basically saying that the student is wearing his clean eyeglasses. And these, like I said, the instructions are provided throughout the entire screening process. And so one of the advantages to this is that you really don't need any training prior to operating EyeSpy 2020. We literally have people, you know, as young as teenagers all the way through octogenarians providing vision screenings without any training at all. And what's amazing is that the messaging that's built into the EyeSpy game itself allows one proctor to simultaneously vision screen 3 or 4 children at a time. So there's a time savings that's provided there as well. This is one of the screens that the children see during the vision screening process. Everything is completely randomized. I'm going to talk about that. But at the very top is the optotype family that is automatically selected based on the child's age. So the person administering the examination doesn't have to worry, oh, should I use Leah symbols or should I show HOTV? There's nothing for them to worry about. The game automatically sets up based on the age of the child appropriately. And then the symbol at the bottom is completely randomized and is reduced in size to the appropriate visual acuity threshold, again, based on the child's age. So once again, you don't have to worry about setting up the test. It does that for you. We also do something that is extraordinarily unique, and that is that we fade the target optotype in gradually. And we do that because we don't want to activate the motion receptors inside the child's eyes and give basically false imagery, which the child can then use to discern the shape correctly and artificially pass the test. So this is something that we do that no other technology can offer. The other thing is that we are measuring every response, every move that the child is making, so we're able to detect very subtle performance differences between the left and right eye, which is important, particularly in the detection of amblyopia or eye suppression issues. Throughout the entire process, children are engaged with these cartoon animation sequences, and like I mentioned earlier, everything's randomized. So the bottom line is that you can conduct many, many side-by-side screenings, and there's no opportunity for children to, for lack of a better term, cheat off of the person sitting to the left or to their right. And there's no sense of competition because it's not like a race. It's not like the child to the left is further ahead in their quest than another child. And that is why things are randomized the way that they are. In addition to visual acuity testing, which we do both binocularly and each eye independently, you also have the option of doing color deficiency testing as well, and it uses the same matching concept. So you don't have to explain to the child what to do. They already know to continue matching. And we do the same thing with stereopsis or depth perception testing, which is very important to assess the eye alignment of the child and anything, identify children that have strabismus or eye suppression issues, because they will not be able to perceive the stereograms. At the conclusion of the test, a report is immediately presented on screen, which can be printed either immediately or at a later point in time. and by pressing the S key, the report is immediately translated into Spanish. So we have bilingual reporting. So I want to talk real quickly about saving time and money for the school. Start off with time. Like I mentioned earlier, let's assume that you have to type in the child's information, and then it takes up to 3 minutes for the child to actually play the game. That's average. It's probably a little high, but let's just say 6 minutes per student. That would be 10 students per hour. But what's important about that is that that's 10 students per hour per laptop. So if you had 6 laptop computers, in this example, you could screen 60 students an hour, and your average size school of 475 children could be screened in 8 screening hours. So you could screen your entire school in one day. But there's no limit on the number of laptops on which a school can install EyeSpy 2020. So unlike objective vision screening devices, where if you buy an objective vision screening device, you get one device, when you buy EyeSpy 2020, you're effectively buying 20 or 30 vision screening devices, because you can install it on as many computers as you want, and as soon as you do, you turn that laptop into a very powerful vision screener. So we'll talk a little bit about time and money. There's been a lot of studies around how much does a traditional vision screening cost. And some of the numbers are absolutely out of this world and a little bit hard to stomach. The lowest numbers that have been published put the cost at between $10 and $15 per vision screening when you look at your all-in costs. Some people want to debate that, but there's been a lot of studies around this, and in fact, some of the largest vision screening organizations in the world that actually do vision screenings, actually conduct the vision screenings themselves, the monies that they raise are at about this rate. So like I mentioned earlier, without a question, every child needs to have their vision screened every year, and there's numerous reasons for that. So that would cost about $47.50 a year if you were doing traditional vision screenings. But you know, there's other costs involved because, again, we talked about some of the shortcomings with the subjective interpretation of traditional vision screenings. If just one child is missed that has a vision problem, and let's just say that that child is held back due to an undiagnosed vision disorder, that costs the school between $5,000 and $10,000. It's inordinately expensive to hold children back, and there's also situations like with remedial learning, individualized learning plans, et cetera, all of which you guys are very familiar already. So the EyeSpy 2020 program costs $3,800 the first year and annually $800 thereafter. So if you looked at the cost over, say, 5 years, it would cost $7,000. You screen every student each one of those years. The cost is less than a school lunch. And again, I just want to remind everybody that with EyeSpy 2020, you're able to put this on as many computers as you want. And in fact, I'm going very quickly to be talking about the data collection and reporting. So we have many schools that install EyeSpy on computers that they don't use for vision screenings, but they actually just want to have access to the data reporting that is offered by EyeSpy 2020, and I'll show that to you momentarily. So EyeSpy 2020 is a video game, and it automatically, in real time, collects and stores all of the data for each and every vision screening in a HIPAA-compliant centralized repository. But remember, I talked about objective vision screening devices, which, by the way, have a very important place. There are schools that vision screen young children as young as 18 months and through preschool. We want to make sure that we provide a solution for them as well. And we have schools that have severe special needs children that, yes, can be screened with EyeSpy in special needs mode, but these schools choose to use some objective vision screening technology. So what we do is we interface, we integrate with these objective vision screeners like the SureSight, the Spot, and the Plus Optics devices. And the advantage is that when you integrate those devices into EyeSpy 2020, you enjoy all the benefits of the data collection. Now, what are those benefits? Well, once that data resides in the centralized HIPAA repository, only you have access to that data, but you have it 24/7 and you have it forever. You never lose access to it. Now, we provide all of the backup and security so the data never goes away. But we also don't necessarily hold it hostage. It's your data to do with whatever you want. So, for example, you have access to those individualized screening reports, again, in English and Spanish at any point in time. And this is all 24/7. All you have to do is launch EyeSpy, and if you're connected to the internet, you can access your data. If you want summary reports, there are a ton of customizable summary reports. At any point in time, you can export your data into Microsoft Excel. And that's what I meant by saying we don't hold your data hostage. You can do that. You don't need to contact us at all. It's your data to do with whatever you want. And of course, you can export it into your student information software systems as well. So we're almost done. Thanks for hanging in there. I do want to talk about something that makes VisionQuest rather unique, and that is that when we were trying to figure out a way how to make this as affordable to schools as possible. Well, these vision screening reports are your reports, and on these reports there is real estate, and the real estate that I've highlighted in green is valuable, and it's yours to do with whatever you want. And what it allows you to do is go out and secure monies monies from multiple sources. The examples shown above are some of the foundations and trusts that have supported a project here locally, but there's nothing that precludes any school from approaching businesses, their own PTO or PTA organizations, even families within the school. And in exchange for dollars, they would get recognition on every vision screening report. What's unique about the messaging is that it's very targeted and it's customized based on the child's gender, age, and language of the report. So this is very different than placing an ad in a magazine or a newspaper. This is an opportunity for businesses to do something very unique. It can contain logos, taglines, websites, coupons, all of that good stuff. But what's really important is that what we're trying to do is create something that generates something beyond just the goodwill in the community and, press releases for doing something good like protecting children's vision. We wanted to provide an opportunity where businesses could get a measurable return on their investment. And the good news is that this can actually be used as a fundraiser for schools. So if the program, again, remember after the first year, the cost of the program drops substantially. But even the first year, you can raise monies that are in excess of the cost of the program and do that year after year after year. There's nothing that precludes you from doing so, and so that we have schools that use this to do just that, use it as a fundraiser. And in fact, this concept is so unique that CNBC named VisionQuest one of its top 10 most innovative companies in the world in 2013. So we're very obviously honored and privileged by that distinction. So if you're interested in using this sponsorship for your particular school, let us know, because we have a couple documents here that we can make available to you that will help explain in more detail how to engage multiple sponsors, how you can divvy up the banner space. Again, that's your real estate on the report to do with what you want. So we'll show you how the different models that are available there, and then of course the steps to going out and obtaining sponsorship. Now, that's not the only way to raise money. It's important to understand EyeSpy 2020 is a software product, and so IT budgets, the information technology budgets within schools, often have monies for software, specifically for software. We also have some schools that have parents, whatever percentage of parents that can and choose to pay for vision screenings actually do so to help offset the cost. And then, of course, there's non-recognized grants and non-recognized donations. So those are all options that are available to schools to help do that. And so with that, I want to turn it back over to Jessica and hopefully start to answer some questions.
Thank you, Richard. That was really interesting. I was especially interested in the end part with the sponsorship. I've never seen a vision screening program be able to earn money, I guess, for schools through sponsorships. That was really different and interesting. Yeah.